The stars looked the same as they always had from the observatory in Houston. Olivia Martinez adjusted her telescope and checked the readings again. Something wasn't right. For 3 nights in a row, she had noticed strange movements in the outer solar system, objects that shouldn't be there. Objects that moved in ways natural bodies never would. Olivia took off her glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. At 32, she had already made a name for herself at NASA as one of their best deep space analysts. But nothing in her career had prepared her for what she was seeing now. "You're still here?" Alan Brooks pushed open the door to the observatory dome, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Alan had been Olivia's colleague for 5 years, and they had developed a friendship built on mutual respect and a shared love of the unknown. "I can't leave, not with these readings." Olivia took the coffee gratefully. "Look at this." Alan peered at the screen. His face, usually relaxed and friendly, grew serious. "That's not normal orbital behavior." "No, it's not. Whatever these are, they're slowing down. And they're big, Alan. Really big." "Asteroids?" Olivia shook her head. "Asteroids don't suddenly change direction or speed. I think they're ships." Alan looked at her for a long moment. "You know how that sounds, right?" "I know exactly how it sounds," Olivia said. "That's why I've triple-checked everything. I'm not wrong about this." Alan sipped his coffee, thinking, "So what do? We tell someone. The military, probably." "You think they'll listen?" Olivia looked back at the screen, at the undeniable evidence of something massive heading directly toward Earth. "They'd better." 3 days later, Olivia and Alan sat in a windowless room at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. Across from them sat Colonel Diane Wright, commander of the Space Defense Initiative, along with several serious-looking men and women in both military uniforms and civilian suits. "Run through this one more time," Colonel Wright said. She was a stern woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Olivia pulled up her data on the screen. "These objects first appeared at the edge of our detection range about 2 weeks ago. At first we thought they were just anomalies in the data, but they've continued to move in a clear pattern, adjusting course in ways that natural objects simply cannot." "And you believe these are extraterrestrial vessels?" one of the civilian men asked. His badge identified him as Dr. Paul Simmons from the Department of Defense. "I believe the evidence points to that conclusion, yes," Olivia said firmly. "How many?" Colonel Wright asked. "We've identified at least 3 large objects and approximately 20 smaller ones." The room fell silent. "How long?" asked a woman in an Air Force uniform with general stars. "At their current speed, about 6 months, until they reach Earth," the general nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Martinez. Mr. Brooks, we'll take it from here." "With all due respect," Olivia said, "I'd like to remain involved. Nobody knows these readings better than I do." Colonel Wright and the general exchanged looks. "Very well," Wright said finally. "You're both being assigned to Project Sentinel, effective immediately. Security clearance is being processed as we speak." As they left the meeting, Alan whispered to Olivia, "Did we just get drafted into an alien first contact scenario?" "I think we did," she replied, feeling equal parts excitement and terror. Meanwhile, at the edge of the solar system, Admiral Victor Reese stood on the command deck of the hegemony flagship Inevitable Conquest. The massive vessel, over 3 miles long, was the pride of the Galactic Hegemony's fleet. Behind it followed 2 more battlecruisers, the Subjugation and the Dominion, along with various support craft and troop carriers. "Show me this planet," again, Reese ordered. A holographic image of Earth appeared in the center of the command deck. Reese studied it carefully. Blue oceans, green and brown landmasses, swirling white clouds. It looked peaceful, ordinary, just another world to bring under the glorious rule of the hegemony. Science Officer Zexlar stepped forward. Zexlar was not humanoid. The Trexalian species resembled something between an insect and a reptile, with 4 arms and a body covered in iridescent scales. Despite looking alien to human eyes, Zexlar was considered quite attractive among his own kind. "Our scans indicate a technologically developing species," Zexlar reported. his voice a melodic clicking. They call themselves humans. They've achieved nuclear fission, primitive space travel within their own system, and global communication networks. Military capability is significant by developing world standards but poses no threat to our forces. Political structure? Reese asked. Fractured. Multiple nation-states with varying alliances and conflicts. No unified planetary government. Reese nodded. This was standard for worlds at this development stage. Divided, they would be easy to conquer. The planet has abundant resources, Zexalar continued. Particularly interesting is the remarkable biodiversity and the unusual concentration of liquid water. The Hegemony Science Division will be pleased. Resistance assessment? Reese asked his military strategist, Commander Valk. Valk, a tall humanoid with pale blue skin and no hair, consulted her datapad. Minimal to moderate, Admiral. Their most advanced weapons cannot penetrate our shields. We estimate total planetary pacification within 14 standard days. Casualties? Depending on the level of resistance, between 10 to 30% of the native population. Reese nodded. Those were acceptable numbers for a conquest of this scale. The survivors would become productive members of the hegemony, as had countless species before them. Standard approach then, Reese decided. We'll announce our presence when we reach their moon. Offer them the choice between peaceful submission or forced subjugation. Based on historical data of species at this development stage, they'll likely attempt resistance first. Already calculating optimal targets for the first wave, Commander Valk confirmed. Reese looked again at the blue planet, another jewel for the hegemony's crown. Another victory for his already impressive record. Set course for their moon, he ordered. Standard speed. None of the hegemony officers noticed the small, sleek vessel that detached itself from the shadow of a distant moon and accelerated toward Earth, moving far faster than any hegemony ship could travel. Inside this vessel, a silver-skinned being sent an urgent message to his people, and then began preparing a different message, one intended for the unsuspecting humans. The Veil had broken their policy of non-interference only 3 times in their 50,000-year history. This would be the 4th. 2 months passed quickly. Around the world, life continued as normal for most people. Governments kept the approaching alien fleet a secret. Only a small group of military leaders, scientists, and key political figures knew the truth. Olivia Martinez had barely left the new underground facility in Colorado, where Project Sentinel had set up operations. She worked with a team of the world's best astronomers and physicists, tracking the alien ships as they moved closer to Earth. They'll reach the moon in about 4 months, Olivia told Colonel Wright during their daily briefing. Their speed has been consistent. Colonel Wright nodded, her face giving away nothing. And we still have no idea what they want? No communication yet, Alan Brooks said from across the room. He had lost weight in the past weeks, his face now thinner with dark circles under his eyes. But their course hasn't changed. They're definitely coming here. We need to prepare for the worst, said General Lena Ford, who had flown in from Washington. The president wants options on his desk by the end of the week. The mood in the room was grim. Earth's most powerful weapons seemed like toys compared to what their scans suggested about the alien ships. They had detected energy readings that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. What about telling the public? Olivia asked. People have a right to know. And cause global panic? Colonel Wright shook her head. Not yet. We need more information first. But fate had other plans. That night, a small object entered Earth's atmosphere, moving too fast for defense systems to track properly. It bypassed all attempts to intercept it and positioned itself in low Earth orbit. Within minutes, every electronic device on the planet, phones, televisions, computers, radios, broadcast the same message in every language. People of Earth, we come with urgent warning. The galactic hegemony approaches your world with conquest in mind. We are the Veil. We cannot intervene directly due to ancient pacts, but we offer this knowledge. You are not as defenseless as they believe. Chaos erupted worldwide. Governments scrambled to respond. Religious groups proclaimed the end times. Some people panicked, emptying store shelves and fleeing cities. Others simply waited for more information, unsure what to believe. In the underground facility, Olivia and the Project Sentinel team watched the message repeat on every screen. "Looks like secrecy is off the table," Alan said quietly. Colonel Wright was already on a secure line to Washington. General Ford stood by, her face pale. "The President is addressing the nation in an hour," Colonel Wright announced when she hung up. "All world leaders are doing the same. We need to find that ship." It didn't take long. The vessel, much smaller than the approaching hegemony fleet, had taken position near the International Space Station. A second message came through. "We request a meeting with Earth's leaders. The space station you have in orbit would be a suitable location. Time is short." Within 24 hours, as the world below tried to come to terms with the reality of alien contact, a small team prepared to travel to the ISS. The team included representatives from major world powers: the United States, China, Russia, the European Union, and India. Colonel Susan Porter was selected to lead the American delegation. At 41, she had combat experience from multiple conflicts and held a doctorate in xenobiology, a field that had been theoretical until now. "Remember, we know nothing about either of these alien groups," Susan told her team as they prepared for launch. "The Veil may be warning us about the hegemony, but that doesn't automatically make them our friends." The journey to the ISS took place under unprecedented security. When they arrived, the 6 astronauts already aboard the station greeted them with nervous smiles. "It's been docked at the new port for 6 hours, Commander Rick Gomez told them, pointing toward the eastern side of the station. "No movement, no communication since the global broadcast." Susan nodded. "Let's not keep them waiting." The alien vessel had attached itself perfectly to the station's docking system, despite it not being designed for anything but Earth spacecraft. The door between the station and the ship opened smoothly. Standing on the other side was a being, unlike anything humans had ever seen. It was humanoid in shape, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, but its skin was a metallic silver that seemed to flow like liquid. It had no hair, and its eyes were large, solid black orbs that reflected light. Strangely, it wore simple blue-gray clothing that resembled a uniform. "I am Sentinel Kier of the Veil," the being said, its voice surprisingly human-like. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." Susan stepped forward. "Colonel Susan Porter, United States Air Force. These are representatives from other Earth nations." Kier nodded. "I understand your caution and confusion. Let me explain why I am here." They moved to the station's conference area. The representatives sat on one side of the table, Kier on the other. "The galactic hegemony has existed for over 3,000 years, Kier began. "They have conquered thousands of worlds and species. Their philosophy is simple. All sentient life should serve their vision of order and progress. Those who resist are crushed." "And the Veil?" asked the Chinese representative, Dr. Lin Wei. "What is your interest in our survival?" Kier's expression was difficult to read on his alien face. "We believe in autonomy and potential. The hegemony expands through force. We seek balance." "Why can't you help us directly?" Susan asked. "Your technology clearly surpasses theirs." "Ancient agreements limit direct intervention. The galaxy has survived terrible wars that nearly destroyed all life. The agreements prevent such conflicts from happening again. So you'll just watch as they destroy us?" the Russian representative Colonel Petrov asked angrily. "I did not say we cannot help," Kier replied calmly. "I said we cannot intervene directly. There is a difference." He placed a small crystal on the table. It glowed with a soft blue light. "This contains information about hegemony technology, tactics, and weaknesses. Their ships are powerful, but not invincible. Their soldiers are well trained, but not unbeatable." Susan studied the alien carefully. "Why would they be vulnerable to us at all? From what we've observed, their technology is centuries beyond ours. The hegemony conquers through overwhelming force and fear. They expect no significant resistance from worlds at your development stage. This arrogance is their greatest weakness." Kier leaned forward. "They do not adapt well to unexpected situations. And you think we can provide the unexpected? Susan asked. For the first time, Kier's face formed what might have been a smile. Your species has remarkable potential. Throughout the galaxy, humans are known for one quality above all. What's that? Susan asked. Unpredictability. You create solutions no other species would consider. Sometimes foolish, sometimes brilliant, but always unexpected. Kier gestured to the crystal. With this knowledge and your natural adaptability, you have a chance. A chance, Susan repeated. Not a guarantee. There are no guarantees in war, Colonel Porter. But without this information, you have no chance at all. As the meeting continued deep into the night on Earth below, nations that had been enemies for generations began unprecedented cooperation. Factories converted to war production. Military forces prepared for a threat they could barely comprehend, and Admiral Reese, watching from the edge of the solar system, received troubling news. A Veil ship? He asked, his voice sharp with surprise. Commander Valk nodded. Our long-range scans confirmed it. They've made contact with the humans. Reese's expression darkened. The Veil had been a thorn in the hegemony's side for millennia, always just within the bounds of the ancient agreements, never breaking them outright. Increase our speed, he ordered. We need to reach Earth before the Veil can interfere further. The game had changed. The easy conquest Reese had anticipated now seemed much less certain. The next 2 months were the most united time in human history. Countries that had been enemies for generations now worked together against a common threat. The crystal Kier had given them contained valuable information about hegemony technology and tactics. Scientists and engineers around the world worked day and night to develop defenses. Susan Porter had been promoted to general and now led Earth's unified defense efforts from the new Global Defense Headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility buzzed with activity as military personnel and scientists from dozens of nations worked side by side. The crystal has revealed another weakness in their communication systems, said Dr. Olivia Martinez, now heading the science division. She pointed to a complex diagram on the main screen. Their ships use a specific frequency range we might be able to disrupt. Susan studied the information. Can we build something to exploit this? Alan Brooks, who had become the lead engineer for the defense project, nodded. We're already working on it. If we can disrupt their communications, their fleet won't be able to coordinate attacks. What about their weapons? Asked General Wei from the Chinese military. Their energy shields operate on predictable patterns, Alan explained. They're designed to stop high-energy weapons like their own, but they might be vulnerable to simpler kinetic attacks, physical projectiles fired at the right moment when the shields cycle. So our primitive weapons might actually work better than trying to copy their advanced technology, Susan said thoughtfully. Exactly, Olivia agreed. They expect us to either surrender or try to fight them with nuclear weapons, which their shields can easily block. They don't expect us to understand their technology well enough to find weaknesses. Kier had returned to his ship after the meeting on the space station, but remained in Earth orbit. He provided additional information when asked, but maintained that the Veil could not directly intervene in the coming battle. Meanwhile, in a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, a special project was underway. Dr. Sam Harris, formerly a video game developer before being recruited for his unique way of thinking, led a small team working on what they called Project Lazarus. The hegemony's ships are heavily automated, Sam explained to Susan during a secure video call. Their systems are advanced, but they follow certain protocols. We think we might be able to create a virus that could infiltrate their network. A virus? Susan asked. Like in a computer? Similar but much more complex. If we can get it into even one of their systems, it might spread throughout their fleet. We could potentially turn their own ships against them. Susan looked impressed. How close are you? Sam rubbed his tired eyes. We've made progress, but we need more time, and we need a way to deliver it to their systems. Keep working, Susan told him. This might be our ace in the hole. Around the world, other preparations continued. The satellite network was modified according to Veil specifications, not for attacks, but for something else entirely. Factories that once made cars now produced specialized electromagnetic pulse, generators designed to affect hegemony technology. Regular citizens were also preparing. Unlike previous wars where civilians were merely victims, this time everyone had a role to play. People modified everyday technology, from cell phones to microwave ovens, to disrupt hegemony communications if ground forces landed. The hegemony, fleet now moving faster than before, had crossed the orbit of Mars. Admiral Reese watched the approaching blue planet on his view screen. "Status report," he demanded. "All systems optimal," Commander Valk replied. "The human planet continues preparations, but nothing that poses a significant threat. They appear to be fortifying their military bases and moving some populations to underground shelters. And the Veil ship? Still in orbit. No direct interventions detected." Reese frowned. The Veil were clever. They knew exactly how far they could go without breaking the ancient agreements. Providing information was allowed. Direct military assistance was not. "They've had 2 months with Veil assistance," Reese said. "Adjust our approach. We'll bypass their moon and move directly to orbital position. No announcements, no warnings. Begin the attack immediately upon arrival." "Yes, Admiral," Valk said, making notes on her datapad. "Targets have already been selected. Their major military installations and government centers will be eliminated in the first wave. And dispatch scouts ahead," Reese added. "I want to know exactly what they're planning." 3 hegemony scout ships detached from the main fleet and accelerated toward Earth. Smaller and faster than the battle cruisers, they were designed to gather intelligence and remain undetected. But Earth was watching. 3 small vessels approaching, Olivia reported, studying the advanced detection systems they had developed with Veil guidance. Based on their size and speed, they matched the profile of hegemony scout ships. "They're coming to see what we've been up to," Susan said. "Let's give them something to look at, but not everything." She turned to the communications officer. "Implement Protocol Mirage. Let them see what we want them to see." Across Earth, certain activities became more visible, while others were carefully hidden. Military bases openly displayed conventional weapons and defenses, tanks, aircraft, missile systems. Meanwhile, the truly dangerous developments were concealed in underground facilities or disguised as civilian infrastructure. The scout ships entered Earth orbit, their sophisticated sensors scanning the planet below. They observed military movements, analyzed defense systems, and monitored communications. After completing their survey, they returned to the main fleet. "The humans are preparing defenses," the lead scout reported to Admiral Reese. "But nothing beyond what we expected. Conventional weapons, some nuclear capability, primitive electronic countermeasures." Reese nodded, satisfied. "They're putting on a brave show, but they must know it's hopeless." "There is one curious development," the scout added. "They've been modifying their satellite network, purpose unknown. Observation capability, most likely," Reese said dismissively. "Prepare the battle cruisers. We'll arrive in 10 days. This conquest will proceed as planned." Back on Earth, Susan received confirmation that the scout ships had departed. "Did they see what we wanted them to see?" she asked her team. "Yes, General," replied the head of counterintelligence. "They detected our obvious preparations but missed the key elements." Susan allowed herself a small smile. "Good. We'll only get one chance to surprise them." She turned to face the global command team gathered in the control room. Representatives from every major military power on Earth stood before her, waiting for her words. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have 10 days until the hegemony fleet arrives. Everything we've worked for comes down to this. They expect us to be primitive, disorganized, and easy to conquer. They don't expect us to understand their technology or to have prepared specifically for them." She gestured to the main screen, showing the approaching hegemony fleet. "But we're ready for them. Humanity has never been more united or more determined. We will not go quietly. We will not surrender our world." The room filled with resolute nods and determined faces. Earth was as ready as it could be. In his ship orbiting above, Sentinel Kier observed the humans' preparations with interest. The Veil had helped hundreds of species over the millennia, but few had shown such creativity or adaptability. Most tried to copy hegemony technology and failed. The humans had taken a different approach entirely. Kier sent a final message to his people. The test begins soon. These humans, they are unlike the others. I believe they may actually succeed where all others have failed. The reply came swiftly. For the sake of the galaxy, we hope you are right. The day of arrival came. People around the world watched the skies, some in fear, others in defiance. Many had moved to underground shelters. Cities stood half empty, but there was no panic, no riots. Humanity faced its greatest threat with surprising calm and unity. In the Global Defense Headquarters, Susan Porter received reports from monitoring stations worldwide. The modified satellite network tracked the hegemony fleet as it passed the moon's orbit. They're moving faster than expected, Olivia said, her eyes fixed on the main screen. They'll be in position for orbital strikes in less than 2 hours. Susan nodded. They're not following standard protocol, no announcement, no demand for surrender. They're coming in hot. They don't think they need to give us a chance, Alan said. They expect this to be easy. Susan turned to the communications officer. Activate all defense systems, alert every military base, it's time. Around the world, soldiers moved to their positions. Civilians activated the devices they had been provided. In orbit, the satellite network prepared for its secret purpose. On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Reese watched Earth grow larger on the view screen. It was a beautiful world, rich in resources and life. Soon, it would be another jewel in the hegemony's vast collection. Battle stations, he ordered. Prepare weapon systems for the first wave of targets. Commander Valk stood beside him, tablet in hand. All systems ready, Admiral. Target coordinates locked. Their primitive defenses? Reese asked. Some movement of aircraft and ground forces. Nothing of concern. Their satellite network has been partially activated, likely for observation purposes. Reese smiled. Begin the attack. Target their military command centers first, then government facilities. The 3 massive battle cruisers moved into Earth orbit. Gun ports opened along their sides, revealing weapons that could level cities with a single shot. Energy signatures detected, reported Olivia from Earth. They're charging weapons. Activate the shield, Susan ordered. Around the world, thousands of devices activated simultaneously. The satellite network pulsed with energy. A wave of invisible force spread around the planet, creating a field unlike anything humans had built before. Fire, ordered Admiral Reese. Brilliant beams of energy shot from the hegemony ships toward Earth. But as they reached the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The beams scattered, their energy dispersing harmlessly into the upper atmosphere. What happened? Reese demanded. Unknown, Admiral, said a confused weapons officer. The energy beams, they didn't penetrate. Impossible, Reese growled. Fire again, full power. On Earth, Susan watched the readouts with cautious hope. The shield is holding. Kier's specifications worked. The shield wasn't a physical barrier, but an energy field that disrupted hegemony weapons specifically. It couldn't stop physical objects, but it rendered their energy weapons useless against the planet. Launch the fighters, Susan ordered. Begin Phase 2. Across the globe, aircraft took off from military bases. They weren't the sleek jets people were used to seeing. These were new designs built in the last 2 months using Veil information. They looked awkward, almost ugly, but they contained technology specifically designed to counter hegemony defenses. Admiral, Earth forces are launching aircraft, reported Commander Valk, her voice tinged with surprise. Reese frowned. Primitive fighters are no match for our ships. Dispatch our combat drones to eliminate them. Hundreds of sleek hegemony fighters, deployed from the battle cruisers racing toward Earth's atmosphere to meet the approaching human aircraft. They've launched fighters, Olivia reported to Susan. Just as expected. Good, Susan replied. Let's see if our modifications work. The human fighters reached the upper atmosphere just as the hegemony drones arrived. The alien craft were faster, more maneuverable, and armed with superior weapons. By all logic, the Earth planes should have been destroyed instantly, but as the hegemony drones fired their weapons, something strange happened. Their targeting system suddenly failed. Shots went wide, missing the human aircraft completely. The human planes, meanwhile, fired simple missiles, Not energy weapons, but physical projectiles with conventional explosives. The first wave of hegemony drones exploded in flames. "What is happening?" Reese shouted, watching his fighters fall. "How are they doing this?" "Unknown, Admiral," Valk responded, her calm facade cracking. "Their aircraft are emitting some kind of jamming signal that's affecting our targeting systems. And our drone shields. They're designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles." Reese's face darkened with rage. "The Veil. They've given the humans knowledge of our technology." He turned to his executive officer. "Deploy ground troops. If we can't bomb them from orbit, we'll take their world the hard way." On Earth, Susan received reports of the successful first engagement. "Our fighters took minimal losses. The jamming technology worked." "But they're preparing dropships," Olivia warned, pointing to new readings. "They're sending ground forces." Susan nodded. "We expected this. Alert all ground teams. Activate the local defense grid." Hundreds of hegemony troop carriers descended toward Earth, targeting major cities and military bases. Each carried 50 soldiers in advanced battle armor, armed with weapons that could reduce a human to ash in seconds. The first wave landed in North America. As the alien soldiers emerged from their ships, they expected to face either a terrified population or conventional military forces they could easily overwhelm. Instead, they found empty streets. Their sensors detected humans nearby, but not in the open. "Spread out," ordered the hegemony commander. "Find their leaders and eliminate resistance." The troops moved through the abandoned streets of Washington, D.C., weapons ready. Suddenly, all their communications went dead. Their armor systems flickered. From buildings, sewers, and hidden bunkers, humans emerged. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. Many were civilians armed with strange devices cobbled together from everyday technology. Others were military personnel with modified weapons. The hegemony troops fired, but many of their weapons malfunctioned. The humans' devices were broadcasting signals on exactly the right frequencies to disrupt their systems. Those alien weapons that did work found their targets taking cover, fighting in ways the hegemony had never encountered before. Similar scenes played out around the world. The hegemony's superior technology was being countered by human ingenuity and unpredictability. Back in orbit, Admiral Reese received increasingly desperate reports from his ground forces. "This is impossible," he muttered. "They're primitives. How are they doing this?" "Admiral," Valk said, her voice now openly concerned. "Something is happening to our systems." The lights on the bridge flickered. Screens displayed error messages. "Our network has been breached," reported a frantic systems officer. "Some kind of intrusion program is spreading through our ships." Project Lazarus had been activated. When the hegemony troops landed, they had unknowingly carried the human-created virus into their own network. "Shut down all systems," Reese ordered. "Isolate the flagship's computers." But it was too late. The virus spread from ship to ship, exploiting weaknesses in the hegemony's network that the Veil had revealed. Critical systems began failing throughout the fleet. In the Pacific Ocean facility, Sam Harris watched his screens with growing excitement. "It's working. The virus is in their system." On the main hegemony cruiser, chaos erupted as life support systems failed and artificial gravity fluctuated. Admiral Reese clung to his command chair, watching his perfect conquest crumble around him. For the first time in his long career, he faced the unthinkable: defeat at the hands of a supposedly primitive species. And with that realization came an emotion Reese had never experienced before: fear. For 3 days, the battle raged in space and on Earth. The hegemony fleet struggled against the virus that infected their systems. On the ground, their soldiers faced resistance unlike anything they had encountered in thousands of years of conquest. The Global Defense Headquarters, Susan Porter hadn't slept in nearly 48 hours. She studied the latest reports with bloodshot eyes. Their main cruiser is still operational, but the other two have lost most of their critical systems, Olivia reported. Our fighters have destroyed over 60% of their smaller craft. And, on the ground? Susan asked. Alan pointed to a world map covered with glowing dots representing battle zones. We're holding our own. They've taken some ground in major cities, but their advance has stalled. The distributed defense networks are working better than we expected. The distributed defense was perhaps humanity's most creative strategy. Instead of relying on centralized military forces, they had armed millions of civilians with simple devices that could disrupt hegemony technology. The aliens faced resistance everywhere they went. Not organized military units they could easily target, but ordinary people fighting for their homes in ways the hegemony couldn't predict. "What about Project Lazarus?" Susan asked. Sam Harris appeared on a video screen looking exhausted but triumphant. "The virus has reached their command systems. It's giving us partial control of some of their ships, including weapons and navigation. But they're fighting back, creating countermeasures. We need to act fast before they lock us out." Susan nodded and turned to the global command team. "It's time for our final play. Prepare Operation Checkmate." "That's risky," Alan warned. "If it fails, we lose our advantage. If we wait, they'll recover," Susan replied firmly. "We strike now, while they're vulnerable." On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Reese fought to maintain control of his fleet. Emergency systems had prevented a complete shutdown, but many functions remained compromised. "Status report," he demanded. Commander Valk, her uniform now torn and dirty from fighting electrical fires on the bridge, consulted her tablet. "The subjugation and dominion remain heavily compromised. Our ground forces report continued resistance. We've lost nearly 40% of our troops." Reese slammed his fist on his command chair. "How? How is this happening? They're primitives." "The virus in our systems," Valk began, "is unlike anything we've encountered," Reese finished. "It adapts, it learns. This is beyond human capability." Vale must have given them more than just information," Valk suggested. Reese shook his head. "The Vale wouldn't break the agreement so blatantly." His eyes widened with sudden understanding. "Unless the humans developed this themselves, using only Vale information as a starting point." Before Valk could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Multiple human vessels approaching," reported the sensor officer. "And our own fighters. They're turning against us." The Project Lazarus virus had gained enough control of the hegemony's smaller ships to turn them against the flagship. Meanwhile, Earth's fighters launched a coordinated attack. "Evasive maneuvers," Reese ordered. "Divert all power to shields." But the virus had affected their navigation systems. The massive cruiser responded sluggishly, unable to avoid the incoming attack. Earth's fighters fired their missiles, not at the ship's hull but at precise points where the shields were weakest, coordinates provided by the Veil. The hegemony's own compromised fighters did the same. Explosions rocked the flagship. Fires broke out on multiple decks. Life support began to fail. "Admiral," Valk said, her voice now calm with the clarity of inevitable defeat, "we should consider withdrawing." Reese stared at her in shock. In 300 years of service to the hegemony, he had never retreated, never lost. The very suggestion was unthinkable, but as he looked at the view screen, at the burning wrecks of his other cruisers, at the swarms of Earth fighters and his own compromised vessels closing in, he knew she was right. "Prepare a communication to Earth forces," he said finally, his voice hollow. Request terms." On Earth, Susan received the message with stunned silence. The hegemony was asking for terms of surrender, not Earth's, but their own. "They're actually giving up," Alan said in disbelief. Susan turned to the communications officer. "Tell them we accept their surrender. All hegemony forces must withdraw from Earth ground and orbit. Their commander will meet with us to formalize terms." 6 hours later, a small hegemony shuttle landed at a military base in Switzerland, chosen as neutral territory. Admiral Reese, once proud and confident, now walked with the stiff posture of someone unused to defeat. Susan met him in a hastily prepared conference room accompanied by military leaders from around the world. "You fought effectively," Reese said, clearly struggling with the admission. "The hegemony has never encountered a species like yours before." "We fight harder when we're fighting for our home," Susan replied. Reese studied her for a moment. "The question What will you do now? The hegemony will not forget this defeat. They will return with a larger force, unless, Susan asked, sensing an offer coming. Unless we reach an agreement, a true peace, not just a temporary ceasefire. Susan leaned forward. We're listening. Reese placed a data crystal on the table. This contains star charts marking all known hegemony, worlds, plus allies and enemies. Consider it a peace offering. Susan picked up the crystal. And what happens when we visit these worlds? Reese's alien features formed what might have been a smile. That, General Porter, is what terrifies. The Veil. Later, after Reese had returned to his damaged flagship and the hegemony fleet had withdrawn from Earth orbit under watchful eyes, Susan met with Sentinel Kier one final time. The hegemony is retreating, she said. We won, thanks to your help. Kier nodded. You would have found a way even without our information. That is what makes humans interesting. Susan studied the alien's unreadable face. Reese said something curious. He said the Veil fears what might happen when humans begin exploring the galaxy. Is that true? Kier was silent for a long moment. The Veil does not fear humans. We fear what any species might become with too much power and too little wisdom. The hegemony became conquerors. Others became isolationists or fanatics. And what do you think will become? Susan asked. That is the question that has divided the Veil. Council, Kier admitted. Some believe you will bring balance to a galaxy long dominated by the hegemony. Others fear you will simply replace one empire with another. He gestured to the stars visible through the window. Your potential exceeds any species we have encountered in 50,000 years. Your adaptability, your creativity, your determination, these qualities make you uniquely suited to thrive among the stars. That sounds like a compliment, Susan said. It is an observation, Kier replied, and a warning. Great potential brings great responsibility. As Kier's ship departed Earth for the last time, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. They had faced the most powerful empire in the galaxy and survived. More than survived. They had won. The data crystal contained not just star charts but technology that would accelerate human development by centuries. Within a year, the first human ships capable of interstellar travel would be ready. The galaxy that had dismissed Earth as just another primitive world to be conquered was about to meet humanity on equal terms, and nothing would ever be the same again.